Hi everyone, I'm Ness Hughes, the Assistant Pastor at St Andrews, Roseville, doing 5 days of devotionals based on the book of Ecclesiastes, and this is day 2, so welcome. Yesterday, as we began looking at the book of Ecclesiastes, we noticed the teacher, the wise one, had a very grim, pessimistic outlook on life as he evaluated all of life's activities and experiences under the sun. To summarise, here is chapter 2, verse 17. So I hated life because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. And this phrase, under the sun, and also chasing after the wind, is really important to understand this book, because we're about to contrast it with chapter 3, where his perspective shifts from all of life's activities under the sun to time and life and activities as they occur under heaven. That phrase, under the sun, is repeated in chapter 1 and 2 8 times, and it really is linked to this idea of a search for meaning on earth seems to be as good as chasing after the wind. But let me read now from chapter 3, beginning at verse 1, as we see this perspective shift. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. That is the time we are in right now. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. And then it says, of God, he has made everything beautiful in its time. He also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. And so as we shift our perspective from activity of life on earth under the sun, and we try and glimpse things from God's point of view under heaven, things go from hatred, he hates life, to everything being beautiful in its time. And he recognises that with eternity being set on the human heart, that actually we have desires for meaning and satisfying relationships and purposeful activity, for justice and for even the experience of the sacred as we worship God. That is actually fulfilled in eternity. Those desires that we have are a reflection of the fact that God has made us for eternity. And so there is a frustrated experience of life under the sun. C.S. Lewis says this: if I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. Ecclesiastes in chapter 8, I'll just flick to it now, in verse 17 says it this way. It says, then I saw all that God has done. No one can comprehend what goes on under the sun. Despite all their efforts to search it out, no one can discover its meaning. Even if the wise claim they know, they cannot really comprehend. And so this meaningless experience that we often and come back to experience during our time here on earth is really put down to the inability that we have to see behind the curtain and to see God's hand and the how and the why and the when of all of life's activities. There's a limit to our human understanding of life and why everything happens as it does. But it doesn't mean that then we just see life as a waiting room, as just a temporary experience to tolerate, or to wait out until we actually get to heaven and all of our desires are met with reality. And so the rest of our time together over these next 3 days, we're going to have a look at then his wise advice for living, considering this perspective shift, as he recognises a limitation to the human experience in terms of understanding the rhythms of life and why things happen as they do. And so that's how we're going to spend the rest of our week, is having a look at, so what can we do? How can we live life? How do we find purpose and meaning? What's the best way to attack and enjoy life on earth, given that we only see things under the sun, but of course it sits under the very careful and beautiful hand of God, who views all activity under heaven. I hope that's helpful, so that you're not putting away the pessimistic book of Ecclesiastes, but instead I'm looking forward to what it might have to offer. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.